You're live.
Hi, I'm Craig Huey, and I'm author of The Deep State, 15 Surprising Things You Should Know. And for the last 2 years, I've been speaking across the United States on radio, on TV, talking about what the deep state is and how it's affecting you. And I get so many questions. I've gotten so many people asking me, could you please do a presentation that we could put online to talk about what the deep state is? And I said, sure, let's do it. And I was talking to one of the largest investment newsletters in the world today. And talking to him, he said the question he gets the most from many of his readers is, what is the impact of the deep state on politics, on culture, and on investments? And I got to tell you, there's so much confusion out there, so much misunderstanding. And that's why with the deep state, we're going to go through what it is, how it operates, what the misconceptions are, why so many people are confused about why it's such an important issue. And, if you listen to the media, if you listen to Fox, you're going to get a different perspective than CNN. You listen to different local stations, you get on Facebook and different types of online services, you're going to get different confusing takes on what the deep state is. But after today, you're going to have a better understanding of why it's so important to every one of us. So we're going to go through this now. And as we take a look at this, let me just tell you one thing. As we take a look at these 12 little-known cover-ups, lies, and toxic actions that impact you and our freedoms, what we're going to find out is that the deep state doesn't want you to know this. The deep state wants to stay hidden. The deep state wants to affect you and your family, wants to affect America, but it does not want to have the light of truth shining upon it. Well, we're going to shine that light of truth, and we're going to expose what's going on, and you're going to have a better understanding than you've ever had before. So as we go through this, just think of this. Many people laugh at the idea of deep state. They mock the idea of deep state. The New Yorker, for example, said there is no deep state. And just recently, not very long ago, the New York Times came out with an article, and the article that talks about the quiet resistance inside the Trump administration, and was by a bureaucrat. It was by somebody in government that was writing about exposing what was going on supposedly in the Trump administration. That's the deep state. And so what is it? What is it that's going on? You see, the deep state involves government, and most people understand it involves government. In fact, I go into the history of what the deep state is. It's not something that has really just been unique to what happened under President Trump. The deep state goes back as long as there has been government. In fact, the term comes from Turkey, where the bureaucracy was basically running the country back in the early 1920s. And the deep state is just a phenomena of what government is. You see, government bureaucracies are designed to grow themselves and protect themselves. But today's deep state has much more danger to it. Career bureaucrats, these are Obama appointees, Obama holdovers. These are people who are ideologically driven. When I'm giving a speech, I often ask people, how many of you been to Washington, D.C.? And most people raise their hand. How many noticed this phenomena when President Obama was in office? That whether you go to a restaurant or you walk down the street, what was the average age of the people? Almost all of them that were part of the bureaucracy, part of the massive hiring that Obama did, were millennials that were ideologically driven to be able to transform culture and politics. They got into government because they wanted to use government to create massive change in our society. And then when Obama left and Trump came in, these Obama appointees became holdovers. They stayed in there. And were they happy that Trump was elected? Obviously not. They were in open rebellion. And then we have the intelligence agencies. And we'll have a whole section shortly on what's going on with the intelligence agencies that have weaponized government against its own people. We're going to talk about the executive branch, the military branch, the general bureaucracy, the judiciary. All these are part of the deep state. And really, there's a $4 trillion federal government being run by people who are part of the deep state. So how do they do it? And why do they do it? That's what we'll take a look at. Sebastian Gorka said, it's the permanent state because these are people who cannot be fired. But deep state is more than just the government. It also is a private entities as well. It's K Street, nonprofits, the Republican establishment. It's the education and entertainment. It's sports, it's corporations, and it's media and social media. All these are part of it. And when we talk about the deep state and what to do with the deep state, we got to take a look at what I would call dangers. One of the dangers is government employees. You see, the deep state, there's a group of people in the government right now where their whole purpose is to resist. Forget the voters, forget democracy. Their job is to do the right thing. They are true believers who are ideologically driven, who believe that they're completely in the right and everybody else is in the wrong. It's a religion. And they manipulate public policy. They sabotage different operations. They create delays. They ignore directives from superiors that have been appointed by Trump. They have their own projects and their own agendas. And you know what? Because it's a bureaucracy, you've all been down to the DMV. You've seen bureaucrats out on the streets and construction jobs and what have you, where basically 5 people are watching one person work. Well, this is what happens when you have people who are unaccountable, where people whose jobs may not even be needed, where they could be working and nobody ever knows if they don't work. They could be doing their own projects. And today, with the deep state and the ideology, many of them are working against the Trump administration, against the American people, for an ideologically driven socialist agenda to be able to transform our society, even though that was rejected in the election. John Brennan, he said that those in government have an obligation to refuse to carry out the order of the President Trump to fire Robert Mueller. And over again, he basically has called upon those in government to resist. And it's out of control. And so this executive branch, it becomes a bureaucracy in the shadows that's really trying to subvert the current administration. When we talk about this, it's like the shadow government exposed. I want to show you what one bureaucrat had to say about what he does as a government employee. Just watch this video for a second.
President Obama has been, a bad fella. Apparently trying to establish an anti-Trump shadow government from almost, the beginning of the Trump administration, and exposed now by one of his own cronies. A new book by former White House advisor Ben Rhodes, detailing how the President Obama, reached out to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other international leaders after the 2016 election and the election of Donald Trump, urging those leaders to fight against President Trump and defend the values that they share. Joining us tonight, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, good to have you with us. Let's start with, first of all, I guess that was preparing the battleground, as some would say, for Obama as a shadow president and to create a shadow government and to create an international alliance to work against a sitting president. Is that not illegal?
Well, according to the Obama gang, who targeted General General Flynn with a Logan Act potential violation. I don't know why it wouldn't apply to President Obama. Certainly undermining the government of the United States by working with foreign government leaders is the very basis of the Logan Act, or what Logan Act is designed to prohibit. But it just shows you just how hypocritical President Obama has been when you have his.
So you see, the subversion goes on with the government employees, with the Obama holdovers, and that is just plain wrong. So as we go ahead and take a look at this, let me just go ahead and put the screen on. When we talk about the government employees, one of the things we're talking about are leaks. Now, we've all heard about the leaks, horrific leaks. Right when Trump became president, there were leaks, like the phone call in Mexico. Leaks from a faceless bureaucrat coming out, not exposing who they are, but trying to cause damage. They're half-truths. They're falsities. You know, it's an anonymous source. Our sources say. There's been 7 times more leaks during the first 126 days of President Trump than the last 2 administrations. There were 8 under Obama, 9 under Bush. The average leak during the Trump administration is 1 per day. And basically, a leak is a violation of the Espionage Act. It shouldn't happen, but the person, trying to get rid of somebody who has leaked is almost impossible. There's been a few, but the numbers have not corresponded to those who are actually doing the leaks. Then we have government employees, resistance from within. You know, these federal workers push back against Trump. That was the Washington Post of January 31st, 2017, about all these federal workers that can't be fired, that are in there as government workers. It says federal workers are in regular consultation with recently departed Obama-era political appointees about what they can do to push back against the new president's initiatives. Some federal employees have set up social media accounts to anonymously leak word of changes Trump appointees are trying to make. You know, they're trying to delegitimize Donald Trump. They're trying to bring down any type of policy or any type of statements, any type of pushes that he's trying to make. They want to destroy. Now, here's one of the mistakes. It's not like a giant conspiracy. It's not monolithic. It's individuals making choices, maybe 1 or 2, but usually working alone. It's a common mindset. It's a worldview. So they're acting in one purpose: to destroy Trump, to expand government, to destroy free enterprise, to advance socialism, to destroy people of faith, to advance a secular worldview. Because of employee protections, because of whistleblower laws, because of the unions, they're almost untouchable. And it's always their self-interest. It's not yours. Try to fire somebody. It's almost impossible. Just listen to this one government employee and what they have to say about the issue of being fired.
Member and all that good stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a little problematic. I look at it this way. So now that the administration cut my program that I was on, it was a cool like data analytics program, and we were going to modernize, democratize, shine sunlight in places where it should be, and they cut it. And now I'm just straight like 8:30 to 5. So it gives me so much more time and like emotional bandwidth to do all this stuff.
Carafa is not shy about how he uses his time at work to resist while being paid by the federal government.
Instead of
in the Department of Justice, bureaucrats who on government time work politics. In his case, Democratic socialists. These are people who are designing how to destroy anything to do with the Trump administration on taxpayers' dimes. Recently, you probably heard about the report that came out. There were headlines, White House's own report disagrees with Trump. This Washington Post says climate dangers intensifying in the U.S. And it's basically the federal report warns of higher costs. It talks about flooding and billions of dollars of costs if we don't implement climate control. And if we don't implement a lot of these policies that have been unverified, not proven. And you know what it is? This was not Trump's White House. This was not like some 15, 16, 17 agencies that Trump was involved with. These were Obama holdovers who still work for the government. They came out with this report that slammed the president because the president basically has taken a position that we've got to be cautious about using ideology to determine green policy and government policy about climate control, that a lot of it is not verifiable. And yet this report made it sound like the government was saying there was a crisis ahead, and that crisis ahead is not proven. And it's from those who are ideologically driven. Another case of the deep state at work. The second danger is governments is this bureaucracy of the executive branch and bureaucracy in the shadows. These include the White House insiders. These include out-of-control agencies. And it includes the weaponization of non-political government agencies like the IRS. Now, you probably remember the IRS and how it went after conservative, libertarian, and Christian groups, aggressively denying them tax exemption, aggressively doing audits, demanding things like give us examples of your email, tell us your speeches, what were in your prayers, crazy things from 2010 to 2012. Nobody was fired. Nobody was held accountable. Ryan Zinke of the EPA, he estimated that 1/3 of his employees were actively opposed to his policies and working against him, not for him. FEMA was at war against churches. We had the hurricane down in Houston. We had all kinds of devastation going on. And one of the things that happens before the government gets there, churches are there. People who are faith are there. Christians are there to help minister and help people in need. And many of these institutions, many of these churches spend a lot of money and a lot of capital to be able to do this outreach. And they do it willingly. But everybody else who does it gets compensated by FEMA, gets help from FEMA. The FEMA bureaucracy, the FEMA deep state is at war against Christianity, and they wouldn't even let the churches have any type of compensation, any type of help. That was reversed by Trump. And even after Trump reversed it, it still continued. And then, of course, embarrassing government actions all around, one after another against Trump. There's never been anything like it. And the third one is what's quite a bit in the news. And those who subscribe to my newsletter, the Huey Report, or my newsletter, Reality Alert, we keep you up to date on this. And in my book, The Deep State, basically in this book, I have several chapters that pinpoint this whole issue of probably the worst political corruption, maybe the biggest crime ever committed in American history, by having the corruption of power found within the government intelligence agencies, the abuse of power that is still being unraveled as it's being hidden, as they try to stop information. Bit by bit, pieces are coming out. You know, in the government agencies involving security and spying and what have you, there's about 17 agencies. Of course, we all know about the NSA and the CIA, of course, the FBI. But then there's the Department of Justice. And these groups have this elite group of people. Oftentimes lawyers who think they're smarter than anyone else, lawyers who think that they can move ahead with immunity, move ahead without accountability, move ahead because nobody will ever question them. And of course, they're doing it out of righteousness. And what has happened looks like an illegal spying on Americans, illegal spying on Trump, and a subversion of the democratic process. You know, people laughed when Trump said, I was wiretapped. He was mocked. They say he was deranged. They say he's crazy. Well, I got to tell you, he was right. And it's being proven over and over again how right he has been, and that innocent people's lives have been destroyed. Innocent people have found that financially and emotionally they've been abused by these intelligence agencies to protect what they did, which was out and out wrong. Then we have the third danger. And the third danger has to do, like I said, with the intelligence agencies, but with this Russian investigation that's going on with Robert Mueller, this special counsel. A lot of people have asked me, well, why doesn't it just go to the grand jury? Well, the problem with the grand jury in this investigation has been that it would not be a fair grand jury. 91% of the people in the area where the grand jury would be voted for Hillary Clinton. They would be anti-Trump. But here's the problem. So Mueller hires all these attorneys, and they're an army of lawyers. Many are Hillary Clinton and Obama donors and supporters. It's a hit squad. It's not fair. It's not objective. You know, there's more collusion, Russian collusion being found with what Hillary Clinton did, and we'll talk about that in a second, but what she did, than anything to do with Trump. And we've spent $30 million, 2 years of constant, nonstop media attention and Facebook attention on Russia. And this Mueller investigation has all these donors, as you can see on the screen, to Hillary and the Democratic Party. You know, and so far, what has happened? We've had, you know, some indictments. We've had people who have lied to Congress, lied to FBI agents, done tax evasion on their tax returns, things they've done in the past, political contributions, but nothing to do with Russia. And now one of my fellow writers on the deep state, Jerome Corsi, that wrote a great book on the deep state, and he's under attack. Roger Stone's under attack. Who knows who else? Some people say, oh, it's going to be wrapped up. This whole investigation is going to be over and there'll be a report. Well, let me tell you, if there is a report, it will be done strategically, where it will be such an assault upon Trump from the deep state that even though there's no collusion, no obstruction of justice, it will make it look bad. That's what can be done, and that's what will happen. And when will this come out? Well, a lot of people say any day now. Well, it might be true, but I think that you might find this dragging out for another year, maybe even up to the next election, because it's hurting Trump. It's defending and protecting the deep state. When we talk about protecting the deep state, probably the intelligence agencies are the ones that have been more in the spotlight. We have the unmasking abuse of power that's gone on, which has been absolutely incredible, where this unmasking can expose Americans to spying and for political reasons. And that happened under the Obama administration like never before. And then we have this whole real Russian intervention that has taken place that has involved Hillary Clinton. And yet Mueller is silent on this. I doubt if he's even going to mention it in his report. And yet this is the one that is the worst thing. Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party paid this legal law firm for this political dossier, which was really oppositional research. It was a hit piece to give to the press on President Trump with unconfirmed, unsubstantiated charges, ridiculous things, even Comey in his testimony before Congress, his second testimony, said it was unconfirmed. And this Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele that gets this money, they start leaking it to the press, and there's this collusion between Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS and the FBI. You had Bruce Orr, the Department of Justice, and his wife Nellie, who worked for Fusion GPS. And all this stuff is like stuff from Russia against Trump. And then you have all this conspiracy going on. How do we stop Trump? How do we protect Hillary? Talking about insurance policy. And from all this, we've had at least 25 FBI and DOJ employees who have been resigned or fired. The whole thing has never happened like this before. And then one of the things I've warned about for over the years has been FISA. What is FISA? Well, there's the FISA warrant, and there's the abuse of FISA that has gone on. You see, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. These are foreign spies in the U.S. or overseas. That's what it's designed to take a look at. But instead, it's been used to spy on Americans. And these judges were not told the truth. And whether the judges are involved in this deep state conspiracy, I wouldn't be surprised, but we won't know until we really unravel and see these FISA warrants and what was actually said. But, it's something where opponents of a political administration, opponents of a different political party, were spied on by the FISA court. NSA contractor Edward Snowden in 2013, he had this warrant ordering Verizon to provide a daily feed to the NSA of telephone metadata. That was the start of exposing what was going on. So from that, you would have thought that the courts would never have done what they did. But what had happened is Rosenstein, the Department of Justice, you've got the whole issue of the FBI, Comey, and McCabe signing off on FISA courts of this Steele dossier. And it's just a DNC, Democratic National Committee, Clinton paid for hit piece on Trump through Fusion GPS to get a spy warrant. That is abuse. And that it's a sad thing that just recently FISA was renewed without enough safeguards from this ever happening again. And so I have a petition on our website at craighuey.com to stop this FISA warrant abuse. And I hope you'll sign on that. But the deep state goes beyond just these levels of government. The deep state also includes judicial activists, judges. You've heard about these judges knocking down one policy after another policy after another policy of President Trump. Now, you don't have to like President Trump. You don't even have to like his policies to be able to say, this is kind of strange. Why is it strange? It's because the judges are acting out of their own ideology. You see, these judges are appointed for life. They don't have anything to worry about. They're not held accountable. Many of them were appointed because they were donors and supporters of Democrats, or if the Republican was in office, Republicans. And right now, because of President Obama, so many of them were appointed for ideology, appointed because they were progressives, appointed because they were socialists. And when they see some of these policies of Trump, they got to stop them. So, we have judicial activists who try to legislate from the bench. They try to change society through the courts because their views are better than anybody else's. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about the votes. They don't care about the legislation. They care about pushing their own agenda. That's versus a strict constructionist. So all they want to do is interpret the Constitution. They may disagree with a policy, But if it's constitutional, then it's legal. And this battle has gone on. And we see this as part of the deep state that's going on too. Now, many states and counties actually have judicial elections. I know that one of our websites, judgevoterguide.com, we evaluate judges. And we had about a 60% success rate in making recommendations for strict constructionists. But there's still a lot of judicial activists out there, and you can actually vote on those issues. So that's why these elections are so important. And as we move into the 2020, many of these judicial judges who are part of this deep state operation, they're going to be on the ballot. And in California election, you can see it on the screen, judgevoterguide.com. But we need to drain that swamp. And with Trump, he has been doing that. That was one of the promises he made, and that's why he got so many conservatives and so many Christians willing to vote for him, not for anything else, but to change the judiciary from judicial activism to strict constructionism. And sure enough, he puts on the bench Neil Gorsuch, which was awesome because this man, he is a strict constructionist and he opposes judicial activism. And then he puts on Brett Kavanaugh, the same thing. He has made 43 lower court appointments that are just as good. That's helping transform America from being a country where it's the judges that are controlling us, not the people. And now there's 142 total vacancies. Now, in another webinar, I have what happened with this last election. Why did the progressives do so well? And in that, I talk about how the progressives were able to prevail on the state level and in Congress and the House of Representatives, but they failed to take over the Senate. And right now we have a Senate that has a capability of appointing strict constructionists to those 142 vacancies. And so our hope is, and we need to encourage these senators to vote for these judges. And again, with the Huey report, I report upon this, and you can follow what's going on with that. Now, the other issue has to do with the danger number 4, the K Street. So here you've got the deep state being involved with the government employees. You got the deep state involved with the judges, but you also have them involved with K Street, which is the lobbyists. You see, President Trump was the first president to win power without special interests. And they hate him. They can't control him. They can't manipulate him. He's not beholding him. And so President Trump doesn't have any of the traditional defenders among the lobbyists. And there's no governing coalition with that. So all of a sudden we see opposition that had not been there before, or support that should be there, but it's not there. So that's part of what we're finding out with this deep state and what's going on. Danger number 6 are these establishment Republicans, these Republicans in name only, these Republicans that are part of the deep state resistance, the Jeff Flakes. These are hopefully going and being gone, but that's passive and active opposition to policies that are good, and it's only because of the man who's speaking out for them and sponsoring them. It's the never Trump people. And that's another area where we have, in the upcoming election, a chance to drain the swamp within the Republican Party of those who want to be able to continue on the path to socialism, the path that is for bigger government, the path that is against First Amendment rights and people of faith. Then we have danger number 7. That's the deep state private army, the organized resistance. Now, I mentioned to you about this last election. That's this private army that's in place. There is no mystery of what happened and what they did. I am going to send everybody who signed up for this webinar a copy of Indivisible. This is like the Bible of the progressive left. This is the Bible of how to win 2018 election. And I'm also going to send you my special report on how the progressives and the socialists won in 2018. It's not a surprise. And what they did is they used data and proper marketing to drive voter turnout. And they did a great job. And we all knew they were going to do it, but too many people ignored it. And the conservatives and the Republicans, they lost because they ignored what was told was going to happen. And what the Republicans should have been doing, they didn't do. So how do I have a perspective on this? My perspective is a little bit different than everyone else's, because for over 30 years, I've had an advertising agency. For over 38 years, I've helped small companies become multi-million-dollar corporations. I've helped big companies become bigger. And as I look at my clients' marketing even today, as I look at their advertising, I look at it from the lens of a marketer. And back in 2011, I did something I thought I would never do in my life. There was a special election for Congress that came up, and I decided to run. And I ran for this congressional race. Nobody knew who I was. In a poll, I came in 0. I was running against the powerful California Secretary of State. I was running against one of the most powerful Democrat families, LA City Council councilwoman. I was running against the mayor of Redondo Beach and other elected political officials. But I came in second. I shocked everybody because I was doing marketing and advertising right. And it got nationwide. Nobody could believe that I knocked off all these politicians and came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi and Obama got very, very worried. And what happened was, we thought we might even win this race. I was running in a district that I should have lost by 100,000 votes, by 17, 19% advantage of my opponent registration-wise. And what happened was, just about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the election, something strange was happening. Every time I would go to a restaurant, go to a church, go to the market, people would come up to me and say, Craig. And if they were Democrats, they would have an issue. Republicans would have an issue. Whatever that issue was, the person on the phone or the person at the door knew exactly where that person stood politically. And they used that to try to pull them away from me. And it was amazing. People would get half-hour phone calls, all these people at the door. And what happened, we didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden, I lose the election. I lose by a couple of thousand votes I had to change. And the LA Times the next day came out with this article, in California race, a test run for the Obama campaign. Obama put together the most brilliant people from Facebook and Microsoft and Google and Twitter. These brilliant minds came up with a campaign program for him using the most advanced data marketing, using the most advanced collection of organizing information to be able to get out the vote. And he put together 1,500 summer organizers against me out of 12,000 applicants. 1,500 hours were worked, 410,000 live calls in the final 20 days of the election, 41 phone banks. We were wiped out. And after the election, I read this article, and I go, oh my gosh, I know what they did. They were marketing with the most modern advertising and marketing program ever. And we were doing it like it was like 10 years in the past, 5 years in the past. We didn't do as good a campaign as they did. And that was 2011, 2012, Obama put together the most disciplined marketing machine you can imagine. And despite all of his negatives, he was able to win that race. And he did it because he marketed smarter, and the Republicans couldn't market. And he organized smarter, and the Republicans couldn't. And that was what leads us up to what happened. You see, one of his organizations, Organizing for Action or Organizing for America, he's got a list of 5 million people, mobilized 32,000 agitators nationwide. He's got 13 million email addresses. He's raised millions of dollars. He's put on courses. And then there's the Democratic National Committee War Room, the Priorities USA, Center for American Progress, Latino Victory Fund. All these people understood about getting the most advanced marketing, tie it to the data, create the most advanced data targeted campaign, and then getting people out to vote. And this is what I was talking about for 2 years, warning conservatives and Christians and Republicans what was going to happen. And what basically happened was this. Tom Steyer is one of the examples. Paid and volunteer door knockers, an army transforming the election. Proper direct mail, proper digital marketing, proper phone calls, text messaging, the most advanced strategies. Spent $150 million. But here's the formula they used. Money plus data plus organized GOTV, which is get out the vote, knocking on doors and knowing what to say, and then victory. And in part of this, you have the whole issue of voter fraud. And that's one of the other dangers of the deep state, because they protect this fact that in our democratic republic, we should have the most honest voting ever. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat, Republican, or something else. It's got to be honest. But it's corrupt now. We may have as much as 2 million illegal aliens registered to vote. And that number in California and certain other states could even be higher. We got duplicate people on the registration polls, ineligible people. We don't know about hacking. That's a danger with the system we have now. Trump tried to do something with the Commission on Election Integrity, and it was shut down by the deep state operatives. And of course, recently you've heard about the ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting is nothing new. It's something that's been going on for a number of years. In many states, 18 states, it's illegal. Some states, ballot harvesting is legal. California officially made it legal in 2017. And anybody who was involved in California politics knew what ballot harvesting could do. The Republicans, the candidates who lost, the congressmen who lost, the state senators and assemblymen that lost, all these people who lost, they knew what was going to happen, and they chose to ignore it. So what is ballot harvesting? Ballot harvesting is basically this. It's sending out an army of people door to door before the election and getting their ballot. So what happens is voter registration offices got 200, 300, 400, 500 ballots from one person that they collected. So they'd find out that, hey, this millennial lives with their parents, and this millennial, their parents may be Republican, but this millennial is nonpartisan or Democrat or something else. We're going to go to them because we think they're going to vote for us. And in this case, it's the Democrats. They're going to vote for the Democrats. And they keep knocking. Sometimes they had to knock 5, 10, 15 time trips going back and forth before they found the person. And they say, hey, give us your ballot. Here, sign it. We'll take it. They made it so simple. Now, Republicans could do that, but they didn't. Democrats did do that, and they won. Now, this harvest balloting, it opens us up to terrible corruption. Because the person who returns the ballot, he may return 200 ballots. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows if they threw away some ballots. Nobody knows if they examined ballots. Nobody knows if they tampered with the ballot, voted for different people. We don't know. And that's the problem with it.
Hey, I'm looking for Brandy. Oh, it's Lulu. I came here to pick up your ballot. Yeah, we're offering this new service, but only to, like, people who are supporting the Democratic Party. It's a service. I'm just here to pick up your ballot and show you how to do it if you don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's new. Bill just passed last year at the end, so there's been a problem with, like, people, like, half the ballots that were mailed out last year didn't get back. A lot of people weren't signing the envelope in the back and stuff, but...
Some people say, oh, that's a horrible thing. Some people say that's fraud. Some people say that's illegal. Well, it's not illegal. We can't prove that there's any fraud to it. They're picking up real ballots. And is it a horrible thing to get as many people out to vote? Well, that is where we have to look at the integrity of an election. And the deep state doesn't want that to happen. The deep state also supports intolerance and censorship in online media. National media is 95 to 96% anti-Trump, and one anti-Trump hit piece after another. And the local media isn't much better. The bias on the local media might even be worse. In Los Angeles, there's some stations and some people that are worse than the national media. The president of Google was just under tremendous attack before Congress because Google has been doing such a horrific job in censoring conservative and Christian press, ideas, postings. And if you do a Google search, too many of the searches have omitted legitimate searches and gone back to a biased search. I'll give you one example. On that climate report that I talked about, the day after that climate report, I thought I would do a little research because I knew that there was something wrong with that climate report. I had to go to 18 pages before I found one person who was objecting to that report and exposing the lies that were in it. Now, that is wrong because those who opposed it should have been up at the top. You know, as a marketing person who spends millions of dollars on Google and Facebook every single month, I know about these algorithms. I know about these different ways of being able to try to determine how best to serve different information because I have to do it for my clients all the time. And I can tell you it's biased. And Facebook has it. YouTube, of course, we have Dennis Prager having to sue YouTube for its discrimination against its videos. I have had discrimination. Others have, even Amazon. Amazon deleted negatives on Hillary Clinton's book. Twitter has it. This is something that should not be happening, but does happen. And then, of course, danger number 10 is the deep state's secret weapon of government schools that are indoctrinating our kids and turning out progressive kids. You know, when you have this liberal social labs, this pro-socialist, highly edited liberal worldview curriculum, it is terrible. And yet this is one of the deep state's best kept secrets of trying to transform our society. And so this is something that has to be on the radar to changing. One of the chapters I have in my book, The Deep State, the 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know, deals with a war on Christianity. Well, why would I put that in? Because you see, internationally and nationally, there is a war on Christianity, and it's the government so often that has been the ones that are at war with people of faith. And whether you're Jewish or an atheist or agnostic or a different religion, it doesn't matter. First Amendment rights are critical. Worldwide, the State Department has been at war on Christianity and people of faith. And all that's starting to change. The countries are persecuting people of faith, especially Christians. Those are something that the State Department has never before even acknowledged. You know, India is now persecuting Christians with its pro-Hindu government. Russia is shutting down Christian activity. Cuba is still a problem for Christians. That's why my wife and I were one of a handful of Americans who went to this international conference in Washington, D.C., where almost everybody was from 84 different countries that were ministers and government leaders and nonprofit leaders of these different countries. And Mike Pompeo and Sam Brownback, our ambassador of religious freedom, awesome man who's defending people of faith worldwide, got together with Mike Pence and put on this conference. And they listened to one story after another of persecution. The man standing next to me is a pastor who was spent years in jail and torture. When I saw him, he was looked normal, but when I held him, something was puffing out his coat. He was like a skeleton. The man below, I've been writing about in Reality Alert and Huey Report about the persecuted church in the Middle East. He was in charge of Mosul area, and the Christians in that area where some 90% of his people were displaced, killed, beheaded, crucified. It was an amazing conference, and that conference is when Vice President Pence got up and called out Turkey for holding Pastor Bronson and demanding his release and saying basically what I call the Pence doctrine, that we'll withhold economic aid and maybe military aid if you don't protect religious minorities. And sure enough, Turkey released the pastor. We need to see this continue. But the deep state heads were spinning. They could not stand what was happening and actively tried to stop it. And now with the Democrat control of Congress, this type of first time ever historic protection of internationally of people of faith is in danger. Then we have the war on Christianity here in the U.S. We don't have time today, but I've talked about all these different issues of people of faith being under attack in a variety of different ways that are unfair, not right, and are discriminating against people of faith. We all have seen the Supreme Court just recently say that Jack Phillips, a Masterpiece Cake Shop, was discriminated against unconstitutionally. Unfortunately, they didn't actually make a full ruling on religious freedom. But here you have a baker who loves people, and his shop was a testimony of his faith. Masterpiece Bakery. You know, this guy would use that as his testimony and his witness. And he could not, as a Christian, bake a cake for a gay couple. And so they took him to court and he lost. And the Supreme Court said, hey, that's discrimination. You haven't treated this guy right. But they didn't decide on the issue. And this guy, Jack, he would sell cakes to anybody. And he said, you can take the cake, decorate it yourself, or you can have some other baker decorate. I just can't decorate it and do the wedding myself. Same thing with this Arlene's Flowers. She's up in Seattle. She's going to lose her house, her 401k. She's going to lose her business because of the government going after her, because the same situation as selling flowers and doing a wedding. Our religious rights are being taken away. Fines, lost jobs, bankruptcies. What they told Jack, the government told Jack, the judge said you have to have re-education. And so these are the type of things that are going on. These photographers are just one of many photographers now under persecution by government. And the Supreme Court of New Mexico, this is what the Supreme Court of New Mexico said to them. This is the price of citizenship. Christians must compromise, if only a little, to accommodate the contrasting values of others. This should not happen, and yet it's happening in America. So we have this big backlash. In fact, never before. Whatever you think of President Trump, he's opened the White House to Christian musicians, to pastors, to Christian organizations, Bible studies, faith leaders, faith groups, all kinds of different things. And the media has attacked him. The people within the government has attacked him. It is an online, an outright resistance against what's happening in Washington, D.C. And here's the thing. The politicians and the deep state have basically written off the Christian vote. They basically say the Christians have no power, no control. And they have basically written them off. So finally, let me just talk about the deep state. It lives to grow itself. You see, these bureaucrats are arrogant. They're ideologically driven. They operate in secret. Their whole thing is to resist. And what is the nature of bureaucracy? The nature of a bureaucracy, it doesn't matter if it's on the local level, the state level, or the federal level. It's to grow itself. It's to fight any change. It's to be able to be unaccountable. We know bureaucracies are wasteful. We know that there's so much of it is ineffective. And so what happens is that these bureaucracies never die. They just continue on and on and on. Now that's bad enough within itself. But when you add ideology to it, then you've got the government becoming a cause against anything that would downsize or change that bureaucracy from what the ideologically driven bureaucrats want to see happen. And so many of them want to see what happens would lead to economic stagnation, would lead to socialism. We need to drain the swamp. And that's because it's a direct challenge to the Republican form of government. 2020 election is coming up. Critical in this election is in every state, new districts are going to be formed. The redistricting battle has begun. And from what I see, conservatives, Christians, libertarians are asleep. Republicans are ignoring it. And the Democrats are trying to take over all the redistricting that will redistrict and gerrymander districts in state houses in the Congress. We need to be able to stop that and be able to make sure that fairness happens in these redistricting. What we know is that good intentions always crumble when the bureaucrats have power. And giving power to the elite will result in abuse. And giving secret power to the elite will result in super abuse. And that's what we've seen. Ideology and politics drive political manipulation, control, and dominance. And what happens is a sinister rogue government. And that's what we're experiencing today. And that's why in my book, the Deep State book, I encourage you to get that book, to be able to order it and be able to find out about it. Also, I just want to say this to those people interested, whether you're a Christian or not. One of the keys to President Trump's victory was the evangelical vote. He was able to win evangelicals in those key states. But we lost ground a bit in this election. Many Christians did not vote. Ultimately, with 80 million evangelical Christians, 52% did not vote. 48% did vote. And we have found that any state you're in, the evangelicals have the power of swinging an election. But that's up to the pastor and the people in the church to get people registered, since over about half of the people in any evangelical church are not registered to vote, and then another half don't even vote. That's got to be able to be changed. Trump proved that money was not what won an election. 1.4 billion versus 957 million, give me a break. Hillary, based upon money, should have won. But what Trump did is he outsmarted Hillary. He did the most advanced marketing as an advertising and marketing executive, the most advanced I could think of. He used the money. He collected the data. He used digital and targeted marketing. Then in those select areas, he got the GOTV to get out the vote, to knock on the doors and get people to the poll or fill out their absentee ballot. And that resulted in victory. And that's what the Democrats did even better in 2018. So as we move ahead, we got to remember this. To win an election over the deep state, look back at 2016. You don't have to match dollars or outspend their efforts for 2020. You don't have to rely upon TV. You don't have to compromise or water down positions to the middle. And evangelicals will vote. To win the election, you need to have integrated, most advanced data marketing. Digital ads with a ground game is critical, targeting and data-driven. You got to have principle and conviction to win over political positioning. And you need to reach out to the evangelicals. So there's 4 ways to turn this around and defeat the deep state. Number 1, I encourage you, buy my book. My book, The Deep State, 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. Within this book, what is it? About 250, 255 pages that will explain everything to you. Number 2, you could go to Amazon or to deepstatebook.com and order this book at a discount. If you get 2 or more, get 20% off for Christmas. What a great thing for Christmas. And here's a personal favor I ask. If you order this book on Amazon, we really need people to write reviews. If you decide to order it through deepstatebook.com, go ahead and do so. Write me a review. Number 3, participate in our boot camps if they're going to be in your area. Join us in expanding our voter guides. And 4, arrange for me to speak at your club or church or a conference or seminar, and I'd be glad to do so. There's a lot to do to be able to defeat the deep state. How do we respond? We don't respond out of fear and silence and condemnation. We choose truth and love, no matter what the cost to ourselves. We sacrifice for freedom. We leave a powerful legacy. And so between donations, volunteering, praying, everybody has a place in what to be able to do and being able to stop the corruption of the deep state. So, hey, thanks for your time. I hope this was useful. I hope this helped you be able to get a vision of what the problem is. And you can see that there is a way to turn it around. But it's only going to turn around if people who understand the problem act. Hey, I hope you subscribe to my newsletter, get my newsletter, Huey Report, and get the book, The Deep State. And thanks a lot for your time.